Have you ever watched your squash plants just absolutely thrive, pumping out these massive, beautiful green leaves, only to find the blossoms are rotting and dropping off before you even get a single squash? It is so incredibly frustrating. Well, don't worry, because in this explainer, we're going to dig into exactly why this happens and, more importantly, how you can easily prevent it. Welcome. Let's put on our detective hats and solve the great mystery of the rotting squash, zucchini, and pumpkins.
We are starting with a pretty heartbreaking scenario, but it's one almost every backyard hobbyist knows all too well. You've nurtured your plants, they look incredibly healthy, super vigorous, and then suddenly, that promising little summer crop starts to shrivel at the ends. It turns brown, maybe black, and just drops right off the vine. Honestly, it looks exactly like some terrible disease is sweeping through, wiping out your harvest and leaving you with nothing but empty vines and a whole lot of disappointment. Now, it is incredibly easy to misdiagnose this problem. I want to share a quote from a Reddit user that perfectly captures the confusion so many of us face. They said, "I assumed if there was fruit, it was because the flower had been pollinated. How wrong I was." As we're going to see in just a second, assuming that seeing a tiny, growing fruit means pollination has already happened, that is the very first trap we gardeners fall into. So let's look at our investigation suspect list. Number 1, poor pollination. 2, blossom end rot. 3, pathological rots. And finally, 4, solutions and prevention.
Let's jump right into suspect 1, poor pollination. Especially early in the growing season, poor pollination is actually our most common culprit. You see, squash are monoecious plants. That's a fancy way of saying they have completely separate male and female flowers living on the exact same vine. So you absolutely have to learn to distinguish between them. The male flowers sit on these slender, straight stems, and they're usually the ones to open up first to provide the pollen. The female flowers, on the other hand, feature this tiny, immature fruit right at the very base of the blossom. And here's the kicker. That tiny fruit is already there before pollination even happens. So the absolutely crucial point here is this. If bees and other pollinators are inactive, maybe because of heavy rain, a massive heat wave, or pesticide use, that female flower never receives any pollen. And when that happens, the plant literally just gives up and aborts the unfertilized fruit. It'll rapidly turn yellow, get super soft, shrivel up, and turn black at the flower end. I was actually just reading a case study from a community garden where dozens of plots were failing exactly like this. To the untrained eye, it perfectly mimics a rotting disease. But in reality, it's just a plant abandoning an unfertilized flower.
But hey, there is great news here. You can completely bypass a lack of bees with a simple hand pollination fix. All you gotta do is locate an open mill flower early in the morning, grab a soft, small paintbrush, and just gently collect some of that yellow pollen. Then softly rub that pollen right onto the center stigma of a newly opened female flower. It is a super simple, absolutely foolproof way to guarantee fruit set, even if the bees decide to take a day off. Moving on to suspect 2. Blossom end rot. Now, if you are completely certain that pollination isn't your issue, we move to our next suspect. Blossom end rot, or BER, is actually a physiological disorder. It is not a fungal or bacterial disease. It's literally a structural collapse of the plant's own cells at the blossom end of the fruit, which leaves you with this dark, sunken, leathery spot. And why does it happen? It happens because of a localized lack of calcium at the exact moment the fruit is rapidly trying to develop. But here is where so many folks get it wrong. The soil in your garden? It usually has plenty of calcium. The real true causes of blossom end rot are extreme moisture fluxes. We're talking about swinging wildly from severe drought to totally waterlogged soil. You see, calcium moves through the plant via water. If the soil is bone dry, roots just can't pull up the calcium. If it's flooded, the roots are literally suffocating, and they can't absorb it either. Plus, dumping high nitrogen fertilizer on the soil causes a massive burst of leafy green growth, and those leaves hog all the available calcium before it ever reaches your growing squash. Now, in emergency cases, calcium foliar sprays can offer a quick, short-term band-aid to the leaves while you take time to fix your watering habits. Okay, let's stop for a second and bust a major gardening myth right now. You are going to see advice all over the internet telling you to dump Epsom salt around your plants to cure blossom end rot. Please do not do this. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. It contains exactly 0 calcium. In fact, magnesium actually competes with calcium to be taken up by the plant's roots. So adding Epsom salt can literally block calcium absorption and make your blossom end rot significantly worse. Just say no to the Epsom salt. Let's look at suspect 3, pathological rots. So, if you have firmly ruled out both pollination and watering issues, you might actually be dealing with real opportunistic invaders. But don't worry, you can confidently diagnose these diseases by their distinct traits. For instance, chone for a rot creates this really soft, wet decay that quickly sprouts fuzzy, purplish-black spores. Honestly, it looks exactly like a little pincushion sticking right out of your squash. On the other hand, bacterial soft rot turns the fruit into this mushy, totally foul-smelling mess. And that's because the bacteria are quite literally degrading the pectate molecules, the stuff that holds the plant's cellular structure together. Now, these pathogens are brutal opportunists. They absolutely thrive in high humidity and freestanding water. They love to hitch rides right into your garden on contaminated garden tools, or they splash up from the soil onto the plant during a heavy rainstorm. They'll even enter the plant's tissue through little wounds created by bugs or, careless weeding. And here's the worst part. If you leave infected plant debris in the soil at the end of the year, they're just going to wait there all winter to attack your next crop. Section 4, Practical Solutions and Prevention. To keep your garden totally rot-free, you want to follow some strict do's and don'ts. Do use drip irrigation, or at least water consistently right at the base of the plant to maintain nice, even soil moisture. Do use organic mulch to lock that moisture in. And absolutely do sanitize your pruning tools with 70% alcohol between plants. On the flip side, don't do daytime overhead watering. It deters bees from doing their job and creates the absolute perfect wet playground for fungal spores to spread. Don't over-fertilize with nitrogen, and never ever bury or compost infected plants. Seriously, bag them up and throw them in the trash to protect the rest of your garden. Let's bring all this together to save your summer harvest. Here are your final takeaways. Maybe grab a pen and write these down. Number 1, diagnose before you treat. Take a close look to see if the fruit is shriveling from a lack of pollen or rotting from water stress. Number 2, plant pollinator-friendly companion flowers nearby, things like marigolds, borage, or zinnias. They naturally draw the bees right in. Actually, tons of master gardeners swear by this strategy for massive yields. Number 3, get out there and hand pollinate in the mornings with a paintbrush if the bees aren't showing up to work. Number 4, maintain really even watering schedules, ideally with a drip system to allow for continuous, steady calcium uptake. And finally, number 5, remove and destroy diseased crops immediately so those nasty pathogens simply cannot spread. Of course, keep in mind this quick disclaimer. This explainer provides general information based on widespread agricultural best practices. You should absolutely always consult your local extension gardening experts for tailored advice that fits your specific regional soil conditions and your local climate variations. So, the big question is, which suspect has been lurking in your garden? Was it poor pollination, uneven watering, or maybe a fungal invader? Let us know in the comments below what you plan to change out in the garden tomorrow. Remember, a healthy harvest really does start with being a clever detective. Apply these techniques, let us know how it goes, and be sure to subscribe for more deep dive explainers. Thanks for hanging out with us, and happy gardening.